Hello gamers, it's the 19th of May 2020 and we're still under lockdown, and here we are again with Alexander and Porus. So Alexander has the Imperial Macedonian army and Porus has the classical Indian army. And Alexander would really like to win a battle. He's lost two so far against Porus. So we'll see what we can do with this one. I fancy a bit of a change in the terrain department this time. And so what we have, which we really should have had all the time, given that the Indian terrain selection is tropical, we have a tropical forest over here, which is basically classed as wood in DBA. So as we can imagine, that's bad going, but it's also a block to line of sight. So that could prove to be a bit of a problem, especially for the Indians, where they have to pay such a heavy price to move their elephants and indeed their general. So we'll see if they end up with troops on the wrong side of that, and so forth and so on. Of course, it's as I said, it's bad going, so it's led to some interesting deployment. The Alexander is once again attacking, so the Indians deployed first, and they've decided to basically operate their army in two separate divisions, at least initially. This is so that these light troops here, and remember the key thing is to remember that the bows are fast-moving troops and are not incommoded in any way by the forest. So they will these troops here, these five elements, will all be able to move swiftly in and around the forest, and indeed through the forest if they want to. But of course, they will fight effectively in the forest because of the bad going. And then they've also got a unit of cavalry here, just in case it gets an opportunity to shoot down the flank and do something useful. And the idea is that they're in columns so that they can move quickly into the forest as a group, as a group of three there. And just a moment. And then they may indeed get to a situation they're spaced exactly two elements away from the rest of the army. So they may move forward and then deploy out to the right here to join up with the rest of the army, or they may go off and do something else as the opportunity arises. We've got Porus in the center with a group of elements. Best to have the elements in a group, all other things being equal, so that 2 points can be paid to move the entire group of elephants rather than having to wastefully spend it on individual elephants. Then we have the heavy chariots, and then we have the cavalry. The cavalry in a column here because they couldn't come out here. That would be too close to the edge of the battlefield, not allowed. So they will deploy out in the fullness of time. Then the really unusual thing is the deployment that the Macedonians have used to match up as best they can against the Indians. What they've done is the odd thing is that they've got this corner here where they've got 2/3 of the phalanx is refused here, and the idea is that they're going to move up and shake themselves out into the rest of the line here. They're not allowed to be in this zone of 4 base widths because they're not light troops, so they can't deploy in that area. So they're going to come forward and present a decent sort of a line. And the other thing that's going on is that they are deployed quite a way back from the point that they could have deployed at, which would have been more up here, sort of a thing. The reason for that is it's a basic idea, and we'll see how it works out, is that if the Indians move forward and they fill the forest with these archers, the archers could be in the forest and therefore well protected from the Macedonian mounted troops and shooting at the Macedonian line. So the Macedonian line is sufficiently far back that it is out of range of any bows that bowmen that might happen to be in the wood. So they're going to have to come out of the forest in order to be able to shoot at them, and then that will make them vulnerable to the Macedonian mounted troops. There is a bit of a problem in that over on this side, once these are swung into place, they will still be 2 base widths short of the edge of the battlefield. So we'll see what the Macedonian commander Alexander decides to do about that. In terms of lining up, they've tried to line themselves up as best as possible against the opposing Indians. 1 second. Which is to say that we don't want knights getting mixed up with elephants, because the elephants quick kill the knights. So the elephants have no knights in front of them, although they do have Alexander here, so it's only over by 1. The Macedonians have tried to line up the artillery, which is not only on a road, but is directly opposing the elephants, and so it can shoot at least at this one and this one right off the bat once they come within range. It's got the Psiloi here in the center so that they can engage the elephants if that looks like a good thing to do at the time. We know that if they do that, they effectively neutralize the elephants for the rest of the battle until the Psiloi are destroyed. The danger there is that we'd have to make sure, the Macedonian commander would have to make sure that the Psiloi didn't just rush off and attach themselves to the elephants, with the danger of being outflanked, because if they were flanked, then the Psiloi can certainly be destroyed in short order. And then we've got the phalanx facing up against more or less the heavy chariots and the cavalry, against which they should be able to account for themselves quite well, especially, or rather, in particular by virtue of the fact that they're in 2 ranks. Because the phalanx is quick killed by the heavy chariots, so you're going to have to watch out for that. Right, and I think that pretty much covers what's going on. So that would take us, as the Indians are the defenders, that would take us to the Indian first bound. And the battle begins. Porus got 3 pips, and so in the first band of the game, we're not paying extra pips, so these were able to move for the cost of just 1 pip. So this entire group was moved forward for the cost of 1 pip. Then, because Porus has decided he wants to close with the Macedonians as soon as possible, has stopped just short of the range of the Macedonian bolt thrower, so as not to sit there getting shot at, or to minimize the amount of incoming fire, as we might say. Then we had 1 pip here, which was to take this column as a group to be able to move into the bad terrain, which they're allowed to do for the cost of 1 pip as a group. And then we couldn't have a perfect world, so these 2 broke off as a group and moved at the speed of the Psiloi just up here, 3 base widths. Had to leave the slower moving auxilia behind on that one. So that's a total of 3 pips. As we can imagine, there's no combat because we're not within range yet. And that is the end of the Indian. Pan back here, or track back. That is the end of the Indian bound. Alexander had 2 pips and decided to begin the wheel forward of the phalanx here, wheeling into position to take up its place in the line, and then also moved the Thracians, the Peltasts, out from here forward and then over here, so as to be able to influence things on the flank. And there's no shooting because the Indians are out of range of the Macedonian artillery, so that's the end of the Macedonian bound. Porus had 5 pips and spent 1 moving the front unit of bows out of the forest and up here to block missile fire from the Macedonian artillery against the elephants, to some extent at least. Can't block them all, most likely. And notice that that was inside the bow unit was inside the forest, so they would have had a halved command range, which is normally 8, but if they're inside a forest or on the other side of a forest, it would be 4. But as we can see, well, Porus was back here. Actually, there was no pre-measured it. There was no problem them being in command. So that cost 1 pip. Then we spent 2 pips to move the elephant group. They wheeled to the left and have moved forward, leaving a gap behind the bows so that the bows can recoil once at least before coming into contact with the elephants and perishing. Then we used another pip over here to move the heavy chariots forward along with some cavalry. And finally, 1 more to move cavalry out to the extreme flank here so as to worry the Macedonian extreme left flank. There's no shooting because the bows moved too far to shoot in this bound, and although they're now within range of the Macedonian artillery, it's not the Macedonian bound, so there's no shooting there. That's the end of the Indian bound. Alexander had 3 pips and took the light horse and moved them into the center of the battlefield here. They're kind of stuck out by themselves, but looks like a pretty good position. They're able to interfere with this rather neat progress of the Indian bows followed by the elephants in the center of the battlefield. So they're able to be in a position where if the bows simply move forward, they're going to be end up in the threat zone of the light horse. So that interferes with that. We think it unlikely that... no, let's go ahead with that. And then over on this side, so that was 1 pip, sorry. And then over on this side, the phalanx moved forward only a short distance because the idea was to not move so far that another pip couldn't be spent on this particular unit, which didn't move with this group, which has moved out to the side so as to extend the line. This is considered being safe to do because it's opposed more or less by enemy cavalry, which pikes should be able to deal with or hold their own against in a single rank. And then, of course, we have the double ranks here facing off against the rather deadly heavy chariots, which have a quick kill on the phalanx. So we've got to watch out for that. As far as combat is concerned, we do now have shooting. The Indian bows are able to shoot at the light horse, and the Macedonian artillery is very excited because it's able to shoot at the this Indian elephant unit over here. Can't shoot at Porus because there's a blockage from the bows, but it can shoot at this unit here, and the artillery, of course, have a quick kill on elephants. So we will see what happens. The artillery has a factor of 4, and the elephants will be using their factor against foot, which is 5. So it's 4 versus 5, but the elephants, the artillery has a quick kill on elephants. We'll see what happens. Here we go. And it's not the Macedonians' time yet. The elephants, the Indians are red, so the elephants clearly won that combat. So that means the shooting had no effect. And then we go over instead to the Indian bows, which are firing at the light horse. They're with 2, they're with 2. So it's 2 against 2. And it's still a draw because now it's 4 against 4. And I'm pretty sure that there's no effect in DBA 3. There are certain things that happen if there's a tie. No. Nothing happens. Okay, so that is the end of that bound. Porus got 5 pips and has done the following. The bows have moved forward slightly, being sure to stay out of the threat zone of the light horse over here. So there's one pip. Then we had 2 pips where an elephant unit has broken off to go into the main charge over here. Then there was another pip used to move this group of 3 units forward, and then finally another pip was used to rejoin this cavalry unit onto the end, getting ready for the main event over here. Nothing else going on. Then on to combat. The bows move less than a base width, so they are able to fire, and within range they have the enemy artillery, which will not fire back at them. Artillery will only fire back in the opponent's round if it's fired at by enemy artillery. So they're going to fire at the artillery, and we've got they're worth 2. The artillery is worth 4, and let's see what we get. See if they can make them recoil or something like that. And there's a result. So not today. The bows end up with 3, and the artillery end up with 8. So no negative effect on the bows, and that's the end of the bound. Alexander had 2 pips, which I have an impression that that means he's not doing great on pips for this battle, but perhaps that'll change presently. Who knows? So 1 pip was used to wheel the rest of the phalanx into the battle line over here. And then it looked like there was an opportunity, which is not to be missed, which was to send the Psiloi forward to be able to attach itself to the front of the elephants, which will then, of course, mean that until the Psiloi are destroyed, the elephant is compelled to just keep following them. So we sort of know where the elephant's going. The flank of the Psiloi is safe because it cannot be attacked by the chariots because they've got the phalanx's threat zone in front of them. We sent both units forward so that we now also have an overlap on the elephants here. Let me just check something. Okay, and another thing that occurred to me was that if you live and learn. If Alexander had more pips, it would have been a good idea perhaps to have charged the light horse into the bows here from this direction, from the flank, and then causing them to turn and face. The point of attacking the bows is that the bows are indeed quick killed by any mounted, which was not uppermost in my mind, but so in their turn they may think about either staying there as a threat, but they're in great danger, or they may indeed withdraw, or something along those lines. Anyway, in terms of combat then, we actually do have some hand-to-hand combat here, some close combat, and we also have the shooting. So the Macedonian artillery has only 1 target, and it's that it's eligible to fire at, which is the bows, and the bows, because they're being shot at, will fire back at what's shooting at them. So it's going to be 4 from the artillery and 2 from the Indian bows. And let's start the ball and see what we've got there. Okay, it's looking good for the artillery. So that's a total of 9 for the artillery and 5 for the Indian bows. So the bows are not actually doubled. And let's take a quick look here. So that means that they will, not surprisingly, recoil. So let's pop them back there. There you go. And then we come to the actual close combat, which is going to be over here. So it's 2 against the 5 for the elephant, except that the elephant is overlapped. So it's actually 2 against 4. And remember, the Psiloi do have a quick kill on elephants. So with an overlap, it becomes a bit more tasty. Oh, sorry, hang on a minute. Of course, the Psiloi are also overlapped, apparently, by the heavy chariots. But Psiloi are not overlapped by corner contact like that. So the Psiloi still have 2. Just one moment. So it's 2 against 4 then, because they are overlapped. So let's see what we get out of that. So therefore, no, it's not the Macedonians' day. That gives us a total of 8 against 10. So that means that the Psiloi lost that one. So that means they're going to be recoiled, and the elephants, because they are of the pursuing persuasion, they're going to follow up. So we should be able to do this nice and cleanly, hopefully, by just sliding right down here. And there's your recoil, and there's your follow-up. And there we have it. So there's our first close combat of the battle. And now it is the Indian bound. Okay. Okay, Porus had 6 pips, and it's all happening now. Right, the main battle line moved forward into contact. This elephant unit was already in contact, of course, so that will continue. Combat will continue there. These bows move forward so as to be right. They're in a very dangerous position, of course, but they're right in front of the artillery so as to stop the artillery firing on the elephants. So they should be able to do that for as long as they survive, at least. Then over here, this elephant group move forward. It wants to just sort of charge its way forward to sweep away the light horse on the way and try to get its teeth into the companions and Alexander over there. And then, because there were lots of pips about, the bows in the forest have deployed into line. They're too far away from the enemy to fire from there. That was the deliberate Macedonian intention, not to be so close that the Indians could effectively fire from some of their favorite terrain. But they are at least shaken out into line of battle, so to speak. So now we have, we certainly have some combat going on. The Indian bows are going to be able to fire on the Macedonian artillery. The combat will continue here, of course, and then we have the main event over here in the main battle line. So we'll start off with the shooting. So we've got 2 bows, bows with a factor of 2, firing at the artillery, which has a factor of 4. Let's see what we get. And not quite. We end up with a total score of 7 for the Indians and 8 for the Macedonians. So that means the shooting had no effect. Okay. And then it's on to the combat. And the most advantageous combat, as far as I could see, is here, because I believe I'm correct in saying that this Indian chariot is indeed overlapped by the Psiloi here. One moment. And so the best opportunity would be here now. Although they have a lower factor, they have a quick kill, of course, on the pikes. So the pikes are worth 3, but they're worth they're worth 4 against mounted troops. They have a 1 +1 support if they're fighting knights and heavy chariots and some other troops. So it's 4 with a +1, and then which is 5. And then these are worth 3 against foot. So they're worth 3, they're worth 5, but they have a quick kill on them. So let's see what happens. Doesn't quite look like it. That's a total of 8 for the Indians and 9 for the Macedonians. So that means the Macedonians have won that combat. And so just checking here, that means that the knights, I'm sure, will be recoiled, and indeed they are. I say knights, that's what they're classed as in DBA. So we will go ahead and recoil the heavy chariot unit there. There we go. Lovely. And so off to the next combat. That means that this heavy chariot unit now is overlapped on 2 sides, which is not ideal. But would really like to get a quick kill on the phalanx if at all possible. So that would be, he'd be rolling with 2. And as I've said, the phalanx is with 5. So let's see what happens there. Not enough. Okay, that's 7 plays 9. So that means that the heavy chariots, the Indian heavy chariots there, are going to be recoiled. So let's go ahead and do that. So many spears prickling about over there. So they go back. Okay. Right. One moment. And then we have the cavalry. Let's start off with the best bet. So the cavalry are worth 3, and the phalanx is worth 4 against mounted troops. Let's see what happens there. Okay. Indians end up with 5. Phalanx ends up with 5, so that's a tie. And let's see, they are solid foot, so let's see what happens. They're recoiled by solid foot. They are indeed. So that's what happens there in the event of a tie. And yeah, not going the Indians' way this time. Okay, so then we have the Indians, which are now overlapped on 2 sides. So they're not worth 3, they're worth 1 against a factor of 4. Looking not looking good. Okay, so that gives us that gives us 1 plus 3 is 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. They have been doubled. The cavalry have been doubled. Subtlety of the rules. They flee from pikes if in good going. So they're not destroyed, even though they were doubled. So that's an interesting rule there. So when you when you flee, oops. You spin yourself around. I don't think you recoil first. You spin yourself around like that, and then you move a full move to the rear. So that means that the front is going to be down at that line there. Okay, so they're going to flee to there. Okay. And let's see, I'm looking at pursuit now, because the pikes would pursue any foot except Psiloi. Okay, but they haven't been fighting foot, so that's that. 1 second.